So today we are going to do this demo of list slicing as part of a series on Kotlin. So slicing usually it means just taking a portion of a list, like say from a range from start to end, or a range from start to end and skipping some numbers using some step. And so let's look at how we can do that with Kotlin. So we could have this function here, and let's just pick some values. So let's just pick some numbers here, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right? Now to get, let's say for example, just the values from index 1 to index 3, right? So let's say 1 to index 2, 3, so this range here. So we'll just use slice, and we can pass the indices. So we could pass either an iterable, any instance of iterable, or a range, right? An instance of an int range, which we can do with just from 1 to 3. This is a range, right? If you look here, this is just an operator function, right? Where it gives us as a return an int range value, right? And so, And so to get this, the values here, we could just do slice like this. So if we print this, we can get, we should get 2, 3, 4, right? So printing that, we get 2, 3, 4, the range that we were looking for. Another option is, well, with range, we could also do something where we could specify the step. So let me just take a bigger range, 0 to 4, and specify a step. So I want to skip every other number, right? So I want to do step to be equal to 2 here. And if I do that and run this, we get, since we are starting from 0, we get the first one, then we skip 1, we get 3, we skip 1, and we get 5. This range here has step of 1, this has step of 2. And if we look at this function, it's also an extension function with infix operator, which here allows us to do it like this. Basically, usually a function we need to pass the 2 parameters to step here, but since we made it infix here, that means that we can write it where we have the first parameter, the function, and then the second parameter. And here it gives us an int progression, which is an instance of iterable, right? And since a slice can accept any iterable, any instance of iterable, we can do this. So if you look here, this is the function. The function that gets called is the instance of, is the declaration of slice that accepts an iterable, right? So we can specify a step like this. Another way we could do this, let's say, just to make sure we get the idea, we could use a bigger step, right? And here we skip, seems like step 3, 8, let's take just till 8. Okay, so you can see we get 1, and then we skip until 4, we skip until 7. So earlier we had an error because if you skip till 3, we need 10. So if we do that, we need 10 here, and at that point we can do 9, and it should work. Okay, so that works. And so as I said here, slice accepts an iterable, so we could pass anything that there is an instance of a class that extends iterable, right? So if we could do, for example, a set, right? So if I do a set of just a couple of numbers, let's pick 3, maybe 4, and 1, right? So set of here will give us an instance of set, right? And set extends collection, which extends an iterable. So slice should be able to accept that. And so it should give us, so here, this is the indices, right? So it should give us elements at indices 1, 3, and 4, like this. And so that gives us the element at index 1, which is 2, the element at index 3, which is 4, and the element at index 4, which is 5. And so we could also give, since it accepts any iterable, we could also give it a list of, right? So here, imagine you have maybe 4 lists, 2 4s, it will just still give you just one of them. For list of, it will work fine also. But for list of, if we do 4 here, we should get a duplicate. And we do get a duplicate for 5 here. Yeah, so yeah, we can pass any iterable or any int range, and this is pretty handy sometimes for traversing a list of values. Yep, so it's defined on list, so any list of any type should work fine. So another thing that we should mention here, we can also do the same thing that we do for lists. We could do it for strings here. So we could do string slicing as well, where we could follow the same format. Let's say we have this string here, right? And we can slice that with a range. So it accepts, in the same way as a list, it accepts an int range and iterable. And so we could also here pass this, these indices. And if we print this, we should see B, C, and D, right? And that's what we see here. We could also, in the same way, pass a set, right? So we could pass a set for the indices. So that can be a set of some values here. Let's pick 1 and 4, maybe. Let's put that multiple times here. So if we run this, we get index 1 and index 4, and we get the value for just once. Yeah, so for strings it works in the same way. It's defined here on string instance, right? But on string class, but it just reuses, it calls over to this method here. So you may wonder, okay, we did it for strings. For lists, what about arrays? Can we do something similar for arrays? Let's try it. So if we do array of, let's just pick some numbers here. If we try a slice, so there is also a slice defined on arrays, right? So we could also do the same thing. There is also a slice array that we could use, and we could pass a list of indices. So it's not just on lists or strings, we also have it defined on arrays. And so we could do something like this. Let's print, and so yeah, so there's a problem there because of this gives us an array, so we will need to print it differently. Okay, so since it's an array, we will need to print it differently to not get this here. So we could just do arrays.toStrings. That should work fine, but we could also just do content to string, which is just an extension function on array that does the exact same thing, right? It's just easier to read here. It's more linear instead of having the conversion first. And so if we run this, we can see that it slices the array from the first index to the index 3 here. You may wonder, if you are coming, let's say, from Python, for example, if there is a way to kind of slice from the back, which Python has, where you could do -2 or something like that to basically start counting from the end. Here in Kotlin we don't have that, but you could easily simulate it with reverse-it. So let's say we have a string here, let's call it maybe Python, and if we want to, let's say, get maybe the last 3 or 4 letters, so we could take that string, reverse it first, and then slice with 0 until 3. And then let's print that. And so we will get it reversed, right? So let me just show this part first. So we'll get it reversed. Maybe let's just take the 3 first ones. So let's stop at 2. And then since it's reversed, we need to reverse it back to get it in the right order. So now we get it in this order, the last 3 letters, instead of the NOH order. Yeah, so this is a little bit cumbersome, not as nice at how Python does it, but yeah, there is this way. So since this is like really not easy to read here, we could do it differently, just to show you different ways of doing this. So one way that is easier to read could be reversing first, and then instead of slicing upwards, since slice accepts just an int range, we could pass an int range that goes down. So which means we can start from 2 and go down to 0, right? So instead of starting from 0 and going down to 2 and getting them in a reversed order, we can get them in the right order, so we don't need the reverse here at the end. And then we could get these 3 here that we are looking for, right? Another way we can think about doing this, I don't think it's clearer, but it will avoid doing the reversed, which would be here doing taking the string and then slicing right away, but we want to slice from this position to the last position, right? So that position would be str.length -1, right? So the length -1, and we will need to go until length. And since until here skips the is less than or equal, so basically it excludes the 2 value, that means we will stop at the length -1. So doing that, sorry, here I want -3 because I want 3 letters here. So we can do that, and that should give us what we want. And so that gives us the same thing. So you have different ways of doing this. Arguably, the Python syntax is clearer once you get used to it, but yeah, there is a way to do it here. Yeah, so that's it for this video. See you on the next one.